I'd like to start the video off by congratulating Muhammad Diabate and Ronnie Hickman for making the final 53-man roster as undrafted rookies. Diabate at linebacker, Hickman Jr. at safety. It's always difficult to make an NFL roster, but it's especially difficult when you're coming in with no draft capital to your name, and a lot of fans are already going to be writing you off before you even take a rep. So congratulations to those guys for making the roster. And just before we get into the specifics, I just want to reiterate that this is just an initial 53-man roster. There are going to be corresponding changes and guys moving to IR and concurrent signings after that. So even before September 10th and week 1, this lineup is going to look at least a little bit different. So starting with the quarterback room, it's Deshaun Watson and DTR making it to the roster. Pretty obvious candidates there. Kellen Mond not surviving as he was pretty bad this offseason and in his preseason reps. The only question here is if they'll bother adding a third quarterback after sending people to IR. Maybe they'll take advantage of that third quarterback spot that the NFL has added in the offseason. But besides that, the obvious candidates made it, and with Joshua Dobbs being traded, Kellen Mond wasn't going to make it anyway. That's why there's only 2 quarterbacks on this final roster. Then you go to the running backs with 3 making it: Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, and Pierre Strong Jr. I thought it was a little interesting to see none of either Demetric Felton or John Kelly making it here. Felton, although I predict he will be in the week 1 lineup just because Jerome Ford might still be injured and they do need a third running back candidate. But I did feel like it was either going to be one of Felton or Kelly making it to that 4th running back spot. But, they're saving that for other people. And again, we'll see what they do for week 1 with the running backs. But a little interesting to see only 3 making it here. Then moving on to the wide receivers with 6, Austin Watkins Jr. being an unpopular cut from camp. And while I am disappointed to see someone that I did enjoy watching in the preseason to not make the team, a lower depth wide receiver who doesn't play special teams and doesn't really play at the slot receiver position isn't really going to devastate me all that much. However, if he does make it to the practice squad, I will be definitely very happy about that. But the wide receiver room in general should be solid. They've put a lot of addition to it. It should be an upgrade from what it was last year. Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, Marquise Goodwin, Cedric Tillman, and David Bell. I hope David Bell can actually shine a little bit more this season to shake off some of the hate he's getting from fans because of the Watkins Jr. cutting. I do feel like there's a lot of Browns fans who are kind of sleeping on him a little bit. I do hope that he can put a role for himself in the offense and really stake his claim to being a legitimate member of this receiving core just for his sake. Then you go to the tight ends with the Browns carrying 3 over with David Njoku, Jordan Akins, and Harrison Bryant. Nothing too controversial here. If anything happens to any of these 3 players, I would like to see Zaire Mitchell-Payton get some NFL action. I thought he's been solid in the past couple of off seasons, but yeah, right now, currently, the room is just a bit too crowded to sneak him onto the roster. Then to the offensive line where they carry 9 people: Joel Bitonio, Jack Conklin, Nick Harris, Jed Wills Jr., James Hudson, DeJuan Jones, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, and Luke Whippler. They've carried 10 in the past couple years. I did make a correction to my point on Michael Dunn where they cut him. He's not actually subject to waivers. He's essentially a free agent right now. So again, once this 53-man roster is finalized and they've sent a couple people to IR to create some more space, then maybe Michael Dunn they call him up and say, hey, would you like to sign another contract with the Browns? And Michael Dunn maybe just accept that, and we'll have 10 offensive linemen before week 1. Other than that, pretty much everything else makes sense here as far as who made the team. Then we're going on to the defense, starting with the defensive line, where the Browns also carried 9 people here: Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Ogbo Okoronkwo, Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Siaki Ika, Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, and Jordan Elliott. Now, Jordan Elliott over Maurice Hurst has been a pretty unpopular move among the Browns fan base, and I do share that sentiment. I know Jordan Elliott, they restructured his contract to make it more, to make it more likely that he would make the team. Didn't get a whole lot of use during the preseason, so they've been saving him. However, I do feel like Hurst has a lot better upside with a very similar floor of nothing. I feel like we've been waiting to see something from Jordan Elliott for a few years now, and it just hasn't materialized in anything. I would much rather have Maurice Hurst, who at least has shown flashes of a bigger and better ceiling than what Elliott has offered. But nonetheless, hopefully Maurice Hurst can make it to the practice squad, or hopefully he's called up to the main roster before week 1. But that is my only gripe with this defensive line group. Other than that, this should be, at least on paper, this should be one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Moving on to linebacker, where they had 6 people: Anthony Walker, Muhammad Diabate, who I mentioned as one of the undrafted rookies who made the team, Tony Fields, Jordan Kunazik, who will probably go on IR immediately with the torn MCL, JOK, Sione Takitaki, and Matthew Adams. No real surprises here. It does suck to see some of the injuries that were suffered in the preseason for guys like Jordan Kunazik and Jacob Phillips. Matthew Adams likely to be working with special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone as much as anyone else. I feel like he's going to be a big contributor for the special teams unit. And again, the linebacker position, nothing controversial there. Should be fairly solid. Not exactly one of the best in the league like with the defensive line, but it should be enough to carry their weight and hold their own against many of their NFL opponents. Then moving on to the cornerback room, you have Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, AJ Green, Cameron Mitchell, and Mike Ford. Mike Ford going to be another nice special teams guy. Don't really know how long Denzel Ward will be in concussion protocol, as he's suffered a few of them in the past. Like I mentioned in the last video, it hasn't really been going well for Denzel Ward, or at least a couple videos ago where I mentioned that. But besides that, the quarterback room should also be pretty solid as well. If Denzel Ward is going to be healthy sooner rather than later and can get to his usual play, then that would be encouraging. Although, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, Cameron Mitchell has looked pretty good in his preseason reps. They do have plenty of players there who can embody that next minute mentality and legitimately still have a solid cornerback group. Then moving on to the safety position, where the Browns carried 5 safeties over: Juan Thornhill, Grant Delpit, Rodney McLeod, DeAnthony Bell, and Ronnie Hickman Jr., the second undrafted rookie to make the team out of Ohio State. So another Buckeye sneaking onto the roster for the Browns after he had a pretty strong offseason, had 3 interceptions in his preseason games. Tanner McAllister out of Ohio State wasn't as lucky, didn't quite make the team. So good luck to him wherever he ends up landing next. I personally thought the Browns would only carry 4 safeties onto the roster, but moves like releasing Michael Dunn, only carrying 3 running backs, and not getting Maurice Hurst in the final roster does make 5 safeties a possibility. Now moving on to some designated special teamers, you have long snapper Charlie Hewlett, no surprises there, punter Corey Bojorquez, and kicker the newly acquired Dustin Hopkins. So as far as the final 53-man roster goes, again, not a whole lot of very controversial moves. Again, Austin Watkins Jr. not making it and Maurice Hurst not making it. That is a little disappointing, but I do think those are moves that can be rectified by the other players on the roster. I feel like what the Browns have at those positions can more than make up for what they could miss out with those guys. Again, maybe both of those guys land on the practice squad, or maybe they get called up after some guys move to IR or something like that. But I do feel like this roster, top to bottom, is pretty solid. It isn't going to be, it's one of the best rosters, honestly, in my lifetime as a Browns fan, to be quite honest. But, we've seen how the Browns being off-season champions has worked out for them in years past. We're just going to kind of be hoping that this is actually the year that they put all of the pieces together to make a nice little puzzle. But until then, we just have to kind of wait and speculate as for what they can do. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did make it this far into the video, let me know down in the comments below what you think about the Browns 53-man roster. Leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed it and you would like to see more like it. And I will see you at the next one.